Hey everyone, this is David Gomez with the Latino Speaker Bureau. I'm bringing you a speaker highlight for the Hispanic Heritage Month series 31 by 31. Today, I'm very pleased to introduce Jorge Ferraez, and he's gonna be joining us today, and we're gonna be talking a little bit about his story as a Latino leader in the US. So Jorge, how are you doing?
Great, David. Thank you very much for having me, and I'm delighted to participate in this great initiative that you and the network, the Speaker Network, have had. I know some of the leaders that are there, and I totally support the idea of having this series. So happy to be here, and thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking your time, out of your day and joining us. So one of the things that I want to do for our audience is I want them to get to know you. So if you don't mind, could you give us a little bit of your background and your story as a successful leader?
Of course. Every time someone mentions successful or leader, I kind of think that I don't deserve that description, and because I have always identified myself as someone who is in the fight, always after something, always after a new objective or a renovated goal, something like that. So thank you for your description. I was born in Mexico City in 1964, and I grew up there. I have a brother who is a year and a half younger than me, Raul, and we were very close, especially right after college. And we started trying to do things together. I went to college to a private university called Universidad Anáhuac in Mexico, and I majored in mass communication, and my dream was always have something that had to do with entertainment, with media, with journalism. That was always my objective. And my brother seemed to be like similar to me. And the reason that I mention my brother a lot is because after some time of discussing and leaving some things together, we decided to partner. And to this day, I think I wouldn't be able to explain the trajectory that we have had as publishers of the magazines in Mexico and the magazine here in the US without his participation, Raul. But coming back to my own story, we started working very early, right after college, even before college. I did some internships and some work as a TV producer in Televisa in Mexico, a TV production company that at that time was very, very big and important with producing telenovelas and shows in Spanish that were very famous in all Latin America and even here in the US with a Hispanic speaking population. After 4 or 5 years of producing those shows, I wanted to start my own thing. So me and my brother decided to start a publishing company, to publish a little, magazine that was about, stories of people that lived in the same area. And it ended up being one of these kind of pamphlets that you distribute in neighborhoods with the little news and little advertisements from the local business and the, corner restaurant and the local strip mall businesses and things like that. And it took us like maybe 2 or 3 years to try to build like a very small company. We didn't have any money. We didn't have any investors. We didn't have any, any padrino or any godfather or angel investor that gave us, some kind of money or investment. So we started little by little, and it took us like maybe 4 or 5 years to make a little business on these kind of urban publications, to be like a little company. And then from that little company, we always wanted to serve, or not to serve, but we always wanted to publish and publish to the readership that is in the upper scale, in the leadership category, you know, up there in the tip of the triangle of the community. That was always our dream, to make publications or create content for them, and that is why we decided to start the magazines that we, you know, been running for more than 30 years in Mexico and close to 20 years here in the US with Latino leaders.
Wow, that's very impressive and very commendable too. I know that a lot of our members, you know, are entrepreneurs, and you know, it is tough. You know, if people are out there and they're struggling, they're fighting, you know, they can really relate with, you know, the struggle. Like you mentioned, you know, you don't consider yourself like successful leader, you know, out there. I'm fighting. I'm you know, I'm getting the stuff done. So, but you know, looking at your publication, you have been documenting many stories of Latino leaders, and what have you noticed that is a current challenge, or over the years is a recurring challenge for entrepreneurs or Latino leaders, and what is your advice for them to overcome those challenges that they feel are still out there?
Well, you know, the basic principle that I have learned, you know, in my position, I have had the tremendous fortune of talking to thousands of leaders during my career of 30-something years as a journalist and publisher, and perceive some of the commonalities or common elements in these interviews with leaders that have made it somehow, some success, some relevance, have a had activity. Most of the leaders don't become a leader and I want to become important, or I want to become rich, or I want to become influential. That is something that occurs to you as a consequence of doing something else, like as a consequence of maybe you know, working with talent and determination and hours in a bank and you got promoted, or working hours as an entrepreneur and sacrifices and weekends and all that, and suddenly your not suddenly, but your business achieved some certain success with that. So these stages that we see from the outside as, oh my God, how did he ended up being a leader, is a consequence of many things that you do. So that's the very first comment that I always want to say to people that ask me in these senses, what are the leaders and what do they think and all that. Most of the leaders are people that have been very leadership for many years. It's a cocktail of different elements, you know, and it's not a perfect recipe. It can vary. It can change depending on the case, depending on the type of leadership that you have. For example, you have leaders that in companies, for example, something that we admire very much here in the US is the corporate leadership, right? So a CEO or a board director is someone that wow, has our admiration and you know, is you know, commanding an organization that sells these $1,000 million and has like these 1,100 employees and things like that. But so even in these organizations, we have two types of leaders. For example, the leader that is the one that improves, the leader that disrupts, the leader that changes things and transforms. It's usually a leader that is a complicated person, that is very aggressive, that sometimes is not perceived as someone that is nice or friendly, or but sometimes is perceived as someone who is very innovative. So, for example, a person like this would be maybe Steve Jobs at Apple, or maybe someone like our good friend in Coca-Cola, Roberto Goizueta, when he was the CEO of Coca-Cola. Leaders that are disrupting and come with things and all that. And then on the other side, we have the leaders that are that after you have made some changes and transformations in organizations, you have the leaders that are more to establish certain continuity, to calm the waters, to establish certain operation, and they now start growing and pursuing different objectives. So for those, and this is just two of the many leadership categories and styles. So for those two categories, you need different elements of that cocktail that I was talking about before, right? But probably, because sometimes I know the next question, what is probably the most common element that we have seen in stories of leaders? It is probably the determination, the persistence of not failing, or the persistent of not quitting, not throwing the towel on unless I have, done something, or I have, pursue or got into an objective.
Yeah. Wow. That is really powerful. And, I've experienced some of that in as an entrepreneur. You always have to push, you always have to keep going, and that is what makes that success, so, okay. So, and in that same area of capturing stories, one thing that I believe will be very helpful to some of our audience members is, will you be willing to share with us a story that you have captured over the years that has truly caught your attention and maybe even had an impact in the way that you conduct business, or just personally, if you will be willing to share that with us?
Yes, of course. And let me tell you, I am very happy and very satisfied with the position that I have, not the position, but my role, my responsibility as publisher of a magazine like Latino Leaders, and also previous to this, publisher of our sister magazine, Líderes Mexicanos in Mexico, who is still, run by my brother, and we're still partners and in communication constantly. But when I was growing up, I was living in a country and in a community and in a family in which mediocrity was very common. We all hated the mediocre performances, the mediocre answers, the mediocre, decisions of people and politicians and entrepreneurs. And even in my own family, I remember very well growing as a teenager, I said, well, I need to go out and feel that I am not a mediocre person. So the admiration for successful people came to me very early. I always had, one or two teachers, one or two uncles in the family who were very successful. I remember one of them that was, he used to have a little factory of producing ice cream cones, the ones that are like waffled. Yeah. And he has so many success with that he ended up buying the company that he was selling to, who was a very large ice cream company. So I remember in my family, talking about the Uncle Carlos was always, oh my God, he has been very successful. On my dad's side of the family, we always have like the younger uncle that we have a very successful engineer building, industrial buildings and manufacturers, and he ended up being a lot of supermarkets for HEB, even here in Texas and things. So very successful too. So I think that my own passion for this was trying to figure out what were those elements that made people successful. Yeah. So when we started the interviews, we developed a very interesting technique for people to tell us their story, because at the same time, you know, people, we tend to be a little bit defensive when we are faced by a journalist. It doesn't matter if it's an interview for a magazine or a newspaper or TV, but we always are like, oh my God, I need to be careful on what I say. I need to be careful understanding the questions. I don't want to give the wrong answer. So how do you manage to take away that defensiveness attitude or that concern from someone that you need to confess their entire life to you, yeah. Right? So we developed a little technique, or a little that maybe is natural in me and my brother, to have a conversation, be friendly, and little by little start with genuine curiosity and genuine admiration for these leaders, to start talking about those decisions, those critical moments, those pivotal ages in which leaders had made the decisions that took them to where they were. And well, you need to study and read about this person before, and be very well prepared to go to these interviews. So I remember that one of the most significant interviews that we have made probably was one that was not a Latino, not even a Mexican, but it was a figure that was a Nobel award winner, prize winner, the Peace Award, Nobel Prize, yeah. And he was the Dalai Lama of Tibet. Oh, wow. And we went to interview him like in 1999, 1997. And it was the story on how we got that interview is a totally different story, and it will take me long. But I can tell you that it was a process of many different elements that influenced the people surrounding the Dalai Lama in Tibet. And we went all the way to India to interview him. And I remember that this level of interview was for us very important, not only because we were accomplishing one of our dreams to interview one of these personalities, but also the deepness and the philosophical content of that interview, in which, for example, on the flight in, I was reading his biography, and I was reading his experiences and some stories that have been written about him. And I learned that he was the 14th reincarnation of the Dalai Lama. And Dalai Lama means like ocean, okay, which means something that is big, that is enormous, that is huge. And Lama means teacher or master, or someone who leads others, who helps others to be enlightened, or to advance in life, or to evolve as human beings. So Dalai Lama means like an ocean of knowledge, an ocean, an immensity of thoughts and philosophies and all that. That's his name. And there's the 14th time. So I was thinking, how am I going to confront someone that has lived 14 times more than me, right? I have only lived one. And even though I don't believe in reincarnation myself, but I needed to assume that I was going to be in front of someone that believes in that, and he himself is one spirit that has. So it was very interesting. When we did the first question, he answered. We had like a list of 10 questions for him. With the first question, he answered the first 6 questions that we had. So very, very soon in the interview, we ran out of questions. So we started kind of improvising a little bit, the conversation, and it was a very thoughtful thing in which we learned a lot.
Wow. That is a fascinating story, and I'm pretty sure you have way more to share about that interaction.
Oh
That
yeah.
that seems like like a life-changing experience. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I know that a lot of us like to know stories like that, and you know see that you got to do that. It's a lifelong goal for not just you, but I'm assuming a lot of people as well.
Yes.
Um, so let's move a little bit towards more of a business look at things. And would you share with us, with Latino leaders, um, as you set out to compete? I know that there are other publications, and what what are the strategies that you use to successfully compete with other magazines, I'm supposing, um, and if you could share some of that with our members.
Yes, of course. Well, my industry, like many others, has been very challenging, especially in the last 10 years. I would say when we established our business 30 years ago in Mexico with our magazines, the panorama for publications and the advertising industry was very good, and actually we took really good advantage of that, and our magazine in Mexico and the titles that we have there have been very successful. I want to say, I don't want to say from the beginning, because it took us like 10 years to establish, names and trademarks and reputation for people to read and trust the magazine. But after those 10 first years, I think we've been enjoying a lot of success, even though the difficult times. In Latino Leaders, when we arrived here, we need to remember that the Latino community is a subgroup of the larger U.S. community, right, of leaders. So not only the readership, but the clients that we have in order to succeed as selling advertising for the magazine are also very limited. Are only those companies that have interest or strategies in the Hispanic markets that they want to advertise there. And I can tell you that maybe 80% of the corporations and companies in the US don't have that, right? So you only have to live with maybe 20 to 25% of corporations or companies that have a specific strategy to advertise in the Hispanic markets. And from there, we can keep doing, cut off the ones that prefer to do it in Spanish, the ones who are specifically focused on the massive sectors, the ones that are promoting products and and then until we get to our very small scope, which is the corporate, which is the leadership, little tip of the triangle, that tier, that of course is significant, is very, very relevant, influential, but not all the time is well supported by companies. So we always have to fight for that. And you asked me about competition, and I don't think we have ever really seen competition in our segment. And let me tell you why. It is because we are just a few, and we have always been just a few magazines. When I started, I remember there were like 5 big titles. It was Hispanic Business, probably the most famous Hispanic magazine that has ever existed, Hispanic Business. Then it was Hispanic, and there was another magazine called Latino, and then later on came Latina Style, and then of course Us, and then there was another one, new one, by a larger group of other magazines called Hispanic Executive. So, and I'm comprising maybe 20 years of industry in just a handful of names of titles. So we don't really compete with each other. On the contrary, I can tell you that most of my relationships with the other owners or the other publishers of magazines have been kind of partnering. I remember very well one day that we were invited by Ford Motor Company to Detroit to a luncheon with a CEO. And we were a small group of publications, maybe like 12, 15 publications, most of them newspapers in the Hispanic market, and maybe 2 or 3 magazines. And when I met with my biggest competitor at that time, Hispanic Business, this man tells me, Jesus Chavarria was his name. He tells me, how many ads Ford is buying from you? And I say, well, I don't know, maybe just like 4 or 5 a year. And I asked him back the same question, and he told me, no, I mean, maybe we 12 or 15 a year. But you know what? You need to get to 12 or 15, and I need to get to 20 to 25. So let's partner together, and let's talk to them, and let's fight for getting more advertising and getting more business from them. So this has been my experience with the competition. I can tell you that more than other titles, the competition in my arena until COVID was the social media and the internet.
Yeah.
That was very hard for some years. But and when I want to say and just before COVID is because COVID has done something very good for many of the small publications like us. It has pushed us to explore and extend and push the limits to what is possible to make in distributing content other than is not our magazine. Right. And let me tell you that these past 6 months, from February to this day in August, our magazine has been transformed a lot because of COVID, because we have to develop a lot of resources that in the past we didn't have. And now, fortunately enough, we have, and we are happy, and I think that we are growing now with those new elements and new vehicles within the same content.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I've noticed there's a lot of industries where, and it seems like there were technologies and things that were working towards like remote work and things like that. And it seems like it has precipitated some of that change after COVID. So yeah, that's very interesting. And you know, I think a lot of people will find that interesting when you talk about instead of competition, you seem to have more of a collaboration with other publications that, you know, they're targeting the same people, but not so much in a competitive or tearing each other down, but trying to lift up. And that is very commendable, you know, for this type of industry. So, all right, well, I'm very thankful. Have one more question for you. And if you don't mind just telling our audience, you know, what's next for you, or what's next for your publication for Latino Latino leaders. You know, if you don't mind sharing.
Of course. Well, I think Latino Leaders is in a stage in which it is understanding the new reality. And as I was mentioning to you, we are developing with my team. I have a very talented and very, energetic and dynamic team of young people, most of them Latinas, by the way, that are every day, you know, bringing new ideas and bringing new formulas to do things and to keep evolving. Last year, we've had our best year ever. And this year was going that direction until COVID hit. And let me tell you something, for 4 or 5 months, we were very concerned about what were going to be the results. But right now, I'm only a little bit behind what I am in terms of sales from what I was the same date last year. So I cannot complain. My clients have been acting a little bit more slowly than I would like to, but most of them have come and are coming, and I think that the rest of the year is going to be good for us. So Latino Leaders, more than a magazine now, is like, I want to say, it's more like an organization. We have the magazine, which is just a tip of the iceberg, but under the water, as sometimes that not everybody can see, we do many other things. So we have our events, the ones that are live and people enjoy very much because we provide great opportunities to network. And we used to do events in at least 14 to 15 cities across the US, and all kinds of events, from receptions to panels to award ceremonies to private dinners, conversation with leaders. And we have had tremendous partners and sponsors that have helped us to do that. And this is, again, pre-COVID. Some of those have been transformed to be now virtual and be over Zoom or over some other platforms that allow people to interact as well. Not as the same as interacting in person, but at least allows us to continue an agenda of conversations and talking about some points. Then we have what we call the live webinars, or all the digital platforms that we have in Latino Leaders are very effective. And we want to reinforce that. We are publishing probably 5 to 6 very important index every year, including the Latinos on boards, the Latinos in C-suite, the 100 most influential Latinas that we just published, the top Latino lawyers, and so other indexes that we're working that have become like a benchmark and a landmark for our company, and people are really after these indexes every year. So we want to keep providing and producing that content through interviews, through reaching out to people, promoting always the successful image of the Latino and the Latina out there, to demonstrate and to showcase that Latinos in this country are not only the future, but a great a pool of talent, a great pool of creativity, a great pool of examples and role models. And with these, we hope that we can inspire all those new generations, young generations that are now looking for an identity, now looking for especially in these times in which COVID, and then the elections, and then the discrimination, and all these things that we've been seeing lately have seemed to create a kind of a identity crisis with young people. Well, Latino Leaders is here to say leadership is universal. Latinos have always been successful in the US, and we have the stories to show, and we have the interviews to demonstrate it, and we just want to keep doing it in many other different platforms to demonstrate and to inspire others to become leaders themselves. So that is my passion. That is my company. I want to grow. I want to sell more advertising every year, and well, just trying to help others to succeed.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. And I have taken a look at the indexes. You mentioned the top lawyers, and I was looking at that, and also read a couple of articles on just highlighting some of the leaders.
Mm-hmm.
I think I read it was the HR person in Wells Fargo. I think it's one of the most recent ones. But you're absolutely correct. Those stories of leadership success are so inspiring, and we need to share that. So, well, I am very thankful, for your time and for sharing this with us. And I'm pretty sure that we're gonna be speaking again. This is good. So, well, let me go ahead and wrap up our interview. And to our audience, I hope you have enjoyed this conversation. And we're very thankful to Jorge for taking the time to join us today, and for participating on this highlight.
On the contrary, David, I am the one who feels honored and thankful for you and the organization and everybody who watched this interview. And hopefully I can just be another point of reflection for people to achieve their dreams in leadership. So thank you very much.
Thank you.